Welcome to the CDN Women in Leadership podcast. My name is Valerie Jackman. I'm the leadership lead at CDN.
And my name is Joanna Campbell, Principal and Chief Exec of Dumfries and Galloway College.
This podcast is designed for women who are working in education, or I suppose any women really, but women who aspire to progress their career and move on to the next level. The podcast, it focuses on what women can do and how they can leverage their strengths to advance and thrive in their career.
Today, we will be exploring the topic of developing confidence and marketing your brand. And I'm really delighted to welcome our guest, Lisa Wardlaw, who works for Young Enterprise Scotland. Welcome, Lisa. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to speak to you both.
So, Lisa, let's just start, first of all, by you telling our listeners about your own leadership journey to where you are now.
Yeah, of course. I mean, oh my goodness, reflect on back on that. It's been quite a journey for me. I think I'll start from when I was probably in 5th and 6th year. When I was at school, I was very much into music and drama, really good at English, and those were my really core subjects. And after school, I wanted to go and study acting and performance, which I did. I went on to study acting and performance. I then went to study musical theatre, and again, this was all through college. I've never been to university. Everything I've learned is literally just by doing it. So I had a role in retail. I worked in a high street shop for many years and took a bit of a kind of senior kind of leadership role within that, upskilling new staff members and things like that. I then pivoted into the care sector. So I ended up working for an elderly home for many years, which was a job that I found incredibly rewarding. And I was developing my leadership skills through there because I was a senior carer. And then I wanted to start my own business. So I had an idea in the April of 2012 and wanted to open a dress shop. And I've always been very entrepreneurial, always had lots of ideas and stuff, but nothing that I kind of felt was solid enough for me to pursue. So yeah, I was 24, had this idea for a dress shop and went to the Prince's Trust with my idea. And 6 months later, I had my shop open in Falkirk and it was called the Belle of the Ball. And so yeah, I was a young woman in business, literally just doing my thing, never ran a business before in my life and pretty much hoping for the best. But luckily it went really well. I learned so much through that full experience of obviously, because I mean, run your own business at a young age as well is quite a lot. Yeah. So I've done that for many years. And then I was involved with Young Enterprise Scotland, where I am today. And now I look after Bridge to Business, which is leading the enterprise programme delivered across colleges. So yeah, quite an interesting journey so far.
A lovely journey, and you can kind of see the thread through it as well as to how you got here.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. And I suppose as a young woman back in 2012, you're obviously still a young woman, I should emphasise, but as a young woman in 2012, how did you develop your confidence going out in business on your own? And, bear in mind that you didn't necessarily have a whole lot of life experience at that point in your career. So how did you develop? I'm really keen to know how you developed your confidence.
I think, ever since I was young, from very young, and I'm talking about maybe even primary school age before that, I've always been one of those people that have ever, put themselves forward, always been on stage or performing or something like that, and never been scared to put myself forward for things. I think as well, I have a very, very supportive family, which are very, very encouraging and, are always pushing me out my comfort zone or encouraging me to try different things and stuff like that. And, I kind of feel like that helped me a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's just something within me that always drives myself. I'm very self-motivated. And yeah.
I think what we've heard from some of our previous guests is the benefits and support that you get from your family networks and the informal networks, if you will. So I think it's really good to hear you emphasise that as well. So, Lisa, I'm keen to know what you see as being the reasons why women are perhaps less confident as leaders, and sometimes they feel they don't deserve to sit at the table. So, why do you think that is?
I mean, in my own personal view, I feel as though it has a lot to do with their own inner self-belief, because there always seems to be this voice in our heads that basically speaks to us and says that we're not good enough, even though we're sitting at this table for a very valid reason, that we obviously do have confidence, we do have the skill set to be there. But I think it's about training yourself to actually realise that in you. And I think that can be really, really difficult, because sometimes, and I know from my own personal experience, that you can just get completely stuck in your own head sometimes. And the way to, well, it certainly works for me, is actually surrounding myself with people who can actually help. You know, getting a bit of guidance, getting a bit of mentorship, speaking to the right people who can actually just make you feel better in your time of doubt. But yeah, I mean, I think growing confidence in general would help a lot with that. And you know, anything we can do to help more women feel confident in leadership roles and really inspire more women to push themselves into leadership roles is really important.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. And confidence, it doesn't come naturally to everybody.
No.
So you do have to proactively go out and seek situations that are unfamiliar, perhaps a little intimidating, to develop that confidence. So I totally get what you're saying there.
Absolutely. And I mean, I remember when I was actually starting as a program executive for Bridge to Business. I mean, obviously I was coming from being self-employed, and I was obviously running my own thing. But when I started with Bridge to Business, I was petrified of going to networking events because I didn't know anybody. And I remember I used to stand in the corner and be so scared because I didn't know anybody in the room. But obviously, like 6.5 years later, I kind of feel like I know pretty much everybody in the room now, so I don't mind going to those things. But beforehand, I found it petrifying. So that was obviously something I had to work on and pushed myself at my comfort zone for, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because this has come up before, Joanna, as well, the idea of imposter syndrome. And I'm really curious about this one because it's mainly women who say to me that they have a sense of imposter syndrome. However, recently a few men have said, no, we experience it just as much. We just don't talk about it as much. And interestingly, I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and they had done some research. And from that research, he said 70% of people had that kind of a mild sense of imposter syndrome, that when they were out of their comfort zone, they were like, oh, you know, should I be here? Should I be doing this? But that it was 15% that felt it, you know, that really felt it, that were kind of crippled by it. So the idea that I think for a lot of us is a thing about, if we're going to build our confidence, you know, just stepping out of that comfort zone a bit. Yeah. And as you say, having a mentor, having a network, this has come out again and again, hasn't it, Joanna, about just having the right people around that will support you. Because we all feel vulnerable at different times.
So, Lisa, going back to that piece about imposter syndrome that Valerie was speaking about there, and you know, as women at the early stages of our career, we probably feel it more overtly than perhaps later on. So, how do you then market your brand so that people will listen to you in your line of work, take you seriously? How have you gone about doing that?
Well, I think especially over, you know, the 6.5 years that I've been in Young Enterprise Scotland, you know, I came in as someone who'd obviously ran their own business, coming into a charity that very much focuses on young entrepreneurship. And that was me. I was the young entrepreneur. So, you know, I was the living, breathing example of what the charity were looking to inspire. And enterprise and entrepreneurship and is something that I feel incredibly passionate about. I love it. It just seems to flow through me. And it's funny because my partner, he always calls me Del Boy because I've always got a business idea. Honestly, I have got notepads filled with business ideas. But you know, in terms of like my brand and things like, I think it's very evident that I'm incredibly passionate about what we do. And I think if you're looking to be a leader in something, you have to be a leader in something that you actually care about, and it's something that you actually really want to make an impact through. And I really feel like through the work that I do at Young Enterprise Scotland, very much in the past few years, that I'm able to do that I'm able to create, you know, initiatives and opportunities for young people, opportunities as well for my team. But that all comes from a place of passion. And I really feel as though that whenever I'm putting things out or speaking to anybody about what we do, it's very clear that I love it, you know. And I think that's really important. I mean, I could speak about the benefits of what Enterprise can do for people, you know, forever, because I was definitely one of those people who benefited from stepping out my comfort zone, just doing it and learning on the job, so to speak. And I have that experience now that I can share with others. So it's not coming from a place of I have never done this before. It's coming from a place of I have done this. I know it can be hard, but I can help you. And I think that's definitely part of why people will listen to me, because I will have been in their shoes at one point or another.
Yeah. What's coming through to me, Lisa, there is about being your authentic self, you know, and having a passion for something and being really authentic with it. This is a topic that we cover on the CMI Emerging Leaders Programme. And when I introduce it, I often mention the fact, you know, brand. Some people say, that sounds a bit like marketing speak, you know, your own brand, your personal brand. But we spend some time really thinking about it, because if we look around at all the leaders we know, they'll have a brand. We'll have a way of describing them. If we're talking to somebody else about them, you know, we'll talk about whether they're really empathetic or whether they're really driven or, you know, have a passion or a love for the work that you do. And getting people to think about their own brand and is it the brand that they actually want to have. You know, sometimes for young people starting out in their career, they're maybe not so aware that everything they do contributes to their brand and how they're perceived.
Absolutely.
And you know, and what you're saying there is you've walked the walk, and you know, there'll be areas, I suppose, where you're learning all the time. I know I certainly am.
Yeah.
But that authentic self really helps in terms of building brand.
Absolutely. And I mean, being authentic is something that's really important to me. I find it really difficult not to be myself, which sometimes is a good or a bad thing. But it makes me feel better as a person knowing that I am who I am. And I feel as though if you're going to be a leader and you're going to want to inspire people, that you have to be authentic. You have to show who you are to inspire others, because people won't believe in you otherwise.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. How do you get feedback, Lisa?
How do I get feedback?
Yeah. On how you are, and, you know, where does that come from?
You know, it's a funny thing, because I think it comes from a variety of different ways. I mean, you know, I think over the years as well, I've had the opportunity to develop a network, so I've got great relationships with people now, and I think that's really helped. You know, in terms of Lisa's brand, you know, the work that I do, people want to work with me. Maybe they think I'm a nice person. I'd like to think they hope that they do think that. And I think as well, sometimes it's about validation as well of the work that I actually do. So, you know, there's been a number of initiatives and things like that have been created through ideas that I've had, and they've then grown arms and legs, and, you know, feedback from, you know, students who've participated in this, or even people who are my direct reports, you know, seeing them flourish. And it doesn't always have to be verbal feedback. It can just be the feedback of seeing them actually grow and actually being confident enough to push themselves out the comfort zone. I know we're talking about comfort zone a lot, but I love nothing more than seeing people flourish and, you know, do something for themselves that they never thought they could do. I find that incredibly satisfying. So I don't need people to come up and tell me, oh, Lisa, you're great. Well, maybe sometimes I do. But, you know, like just seeing people flourish through things that I have potentially had an input to is something that for me is very, very valuable feedback.
Yeah. I asked that actually because I had some feedback recently because I was really passionate and driven about something, and a very trusted friend said, "Oh, just relax a wee bit around that," and it, you know, it was that wake up call. It was like, yes, just Valerie, see the bigger picture here, you know, and that was a supportive comment that I got.
Yeah.
You know, some feedback that I got that was really valuable. So I think being open to that helps you stay authentic and stay, you know, stick to purpose, I suppose, you know, remember why you're doing what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, everyone's still a work in progress. I think up until this point, I've learned so much in a very short amount of time. And, you know, I love to learn. And if I feel as though I'm not doing something correctly or there's something that could be changed, I'm completely open to that. And, you know, I always just try to aim to be the best person I can be. And if I don't get constructive feedback sometimes, you know, how am I supposed to grow and learn? So yeah, it comes kind of both ways there.
I think listening to what you're saying there, Lisa, I mean, I can totally relate to that. And I think that piece around authenticity, it also builds trust with the people that you're working with and the people that work for you. And that allows, or it facilitates that feedback, good or bad, and people being comfortable with you as a leader to know that they can give you that feedback and that feedback will be received in a positive way. And, you know, so I think that's what you're saying there is very valid. But I just wondered if you could maybe tell our listeners about how you would encourage our listeners, I should say, that are perhaps aspiring future leaders to market their brand in a positive way that would support their career. And the reason I ask you that is because women sometimes find themselves in a situation where they feel they've got to conform to a type or a person in the workplace that isn't necessarily their true self. So I'm just keen to hear your thoughts on that for anybody that finds themselves in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, be a disruptor. You know, have your voice heard, get yourself out there. Don't be scared to say what, you know, you feel, and again, it's about just having that confidence to put yourself out there, you know, to contribute to whatever it is. But I think as well, it's about identifying what your niche is, you know, what's the passion, what are you trying to achieve. And I think for me personally, I look at the end goal. So I'm kind of thinking when I'm like, hopefully I make it to like 80 or 90, I'll be like, right, if I was to look back on my life, what do I want to have achieved, you know? And I feel as though that I know where I want to be. And with that, that's the kind of the track that I'm on. I'm driven, I'm going for it, you know? So yeah, that's what, and I've obviously, as well as I say, surrounding yourself with good people, networking is so important. But it's also thinking about, you know, how do you put yourself out there in terms of like LinkedIn or social media, or whenever you're talking in public, if you're delivering a speech or anything like that. You know, it's very much like if you're starting up a business, is looking at who is brand Lisa, like what is that? And I suppose it's something I've never really thought about too much into it. I never thought that when I started doing the role that I'm doing and joined Young Enterprise Scotland that I'd be like, right, this is who I want to be. I've just kind of naturally went with it, and the kind of reputation, or you know, that I have now within the work that I do, it's just happened organically. But I think, yeah, it's just about finding your passion, finding your niche, you know, share your thoughts and stuff like that as well, whether it be on podcasts, LinkedIn, all that type of thing. There's lots of different amazing platforms that you can put yourself out there on now.
Yeah, and actually I'm really interested in what you're saying there about social media, because sometimes, and this is just my observation, you know, I probably would regard myself as being a bit reticent about putting too much out there. I see people at one end of the spectrum who put everything out there, and you see the posts coming through and you think, oh, really? And then you get the other end of the spectrum. But what I have observed about you is you seem to get that messaging just right in terms of the quantity, the message. And so in terms of how you get that balance right, is that something you've been quite deliberate about, or is it a lucky coincidence?
No, thank you. And that's great to hear, actually, because that's what I'm trying to do. And I totally agree with what you're saying, Joanna, about, you know, you can just oversaturate things too much, and then you're like, oh, this again. So, you know, I have been very selective on the amount of content I put out. I mean, I use LinkedIn all the time. I love LinkedIn. It's my most favorite kind of social media platform, although it's a professional one. But I am very selective on what I put out, the way that it looks. You know, I've now noticed that when people in the organisation are putting out their LinkedIn posts usually look quite similar to one that I've put out. I've usually got a wee emoji and it's broken down in a certain way. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a coincidence. I try to be smart in terms of the time that I post to ensure that people will see it. The people that I tag, you know, so we have we've got many things happening at the moment with Bridge to Business, and I'll obviously use tagging, you know, whether it be tagging the colleges or our partnership organisations, you know, people like yourself. And yeah, so yes, I am smart about it and strategic about it, Joanna. I'm just, I'd never really thought about it too much there, but yeah, no, I am.
No, I think just from my observation, I think from a marketing point of view, I mean, I'm no expert, but I can see that what you do is very effective. And, you know, not like me, I get around from my team for posting pictures of my dog. So, and then I think to myself, well, I can't be professional all the time, but
well, exactly, and it's about showing your personality as well. So, I mean, I obviously have like personal accounts that I'll use for my family, and you know, for me, I wouldn't post pictures of my family on professional stuff. I keep that private. But you know, LinkedIn, very professional, very work orientated, and that's it. It's all very much what we do. But I also have a separate Twitter account. So I've got a personal Twitter account, but I've also got a professional Twitter account, you know, which I'll post about my work and stuff like that. And that seems to have worked really well. But yeah, I mean, I think using social media to get the word out, it really, really helps build a brand and raise awareness of all the amazing work that people are doing as well.
And also, I think this is just a tip from me. Anybody that finds themselves in the situation where they think, oh, I need to do this, but actually I'm just a bit shy, or, you know, I would just encourage people to just follow what's going on these platforms till you get a feel for it, till you build your confidence, and then just take a leap of faith and go in there. And you just have to sort of blank out that feeling shy about yourself part of you, because not everybody is as confident as you, Lisa. That's the other thing. So
yeah, I mean, I think I'm always very conscious of that. I try very hard not to make the posts all about me. And it's not like, you know, I think it's a collective when I'm putting out my LinkedIn posts. It's never just it's, you know, it's we. The things that we do are always contribute by a number of different people, so it's never like, this is what I did today. Well, actually, it wasn't me, it was others as well. So I try to get that balance right. So yeah, I would hate to come across as self-indulgent, you know. I would just hate that, and maybe I do, but it's never intentional.
I'm finding this really interesting because I used to be on Twitter, and a couple of years ago decided to come off Twitter altogether. And it was quite an unusual step. I think my husband thought I was addicted to it because he would check in and go, have you been on Twitter yet? Have you been back on Twitter yet? And I haven't gone back on. And that's for reasons I saw Caroline Flack's mum did a documentary, and I was
Mm-hmm.
really struck by that, and
Absolutely.
I think I actually, as well as that, what I found was that sometimes I would go onto Twitter and then I'd realize 45 minutes later I had just, just lost 45 minutes looking at stuff, and then sometimes getting angry and sometimes not. So I thought, for me, actually, I need to make a call around this and use my time and my energy in a way that works better. But I am very active on LinkedIn, as you say, Lisa, that professional channel. I like that, and I like to share articles. And I think people, sometimes people say, oh, always put a comment in if you're going to share something. Quite often I'll share something that I think might be useful for some of the people that I'm working with at the time. And I don't necessarily comment, because I think I'd only be saying the same as what the person is saying. Sometimes I'll take a little quote and put quotation marks. But I suppose I'm saying this because if there are people out there who are thinking, oh, crikey, that's my worst nightmare, having to work on, having to do stuff on social media, that, you can still create a brand, and you can manage that for yourself, however you want to manage it. I suppose that's why I'm chipping that bit in.
No, you're absolutely right. And there's other platforms as well that you can use. I mean, I was going to say TikTok, but I don't suppose I should mention that at the moment. Seeing as how
I've taken that off my phone. I took that off my phone the other night. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing that anymore. But again, Valerie, what you were saying there about consuming time, like, my goodness, you spent hours on that thing. And it's just like, I could be doing something so much more productive. It's mad.
But they're great networking tools as well. And
absolutely.
Also good from a environmental horizon scanning perspective as well, to know what's going on there. So, not to play them down.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't play them down. And I suppose what I'm getting from this conversation is that it's important to be quite selective in terms of what you use. If you're really thinking about your brand and how you come across to other people, it's important to be selective and be conscious of it, rather than scrolling and liking and taking everything.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. You have to be careful as well of what you like on, if you're looking to put professional stuff out there, people can see what you've liked or commented on. So you have to be very, very careful, because that does show up, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're kind of coming to an end. If Lisa, generally speaking, if you're thinking about women in leadership and you were to give some, just say, top 3 tips to young women who are looking to progress on their leadership journey, what would they be?
I think it's about, and I've mentioned the mentor thing. I think mentorship is incredibly important. I think surrounding yourself with people who have got more experience than you, and getting guidance, because I know how valuable mentorship has been for me. I know how valuable it is for others. And I'm constantly wanting to learn from others things that I don't know. But I think, you know what? Do what makes you happy. And I think that's a really, really important thing, find what makes you happy and be passionate about it, and surround yourself with good people. That would be my tips.
That'd be your tips. How lovely. Yeah, absolutely. Find what makes you happy and surround yourself with good people. I love that. Okay, that has brought us to the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing your wisdom and your really positive vibes and energy.
Oh, thank you so much, both of you. I really enjoyed having a chat with you today.
Thanks, Lisa, and it's good to see you as ever and hear all your wonderful insights. So thank you, and thanks to everybody for listening as well.